Hello, everyone, and welcome to the day 4 of the CICD week. And my name is Sam Parak, and I am a CNCF ambassador working as Director of Technical Evangelism at CIVO, building the next gen cloud platform. If you are kind of new to Kubernetes, check out co.com/academy. It's completely free, built by me and my team. 50 plus curated video content, free of cost, without credit card. So make sure you use them because most of the time people ask the prerequisites of all the streams that I keep on happening. So many times the prerequisite is Kubernetes. So make sure you learn that. That would be great. And today we'll be learning about Keptn because that is the stream of today. Very excited about that because the past three streams have been amazing, and I know Andreas is awesome and Keptn is awesome too. So it'll be too much fun. And First things first, so make sure you are nice to each other in the chat. So for the speakers, presenters, and each other, it's kind of we all are here to learn, nothing fancy stuff going on. And I am pasting a link in the chat, which is for the Google form, basically the swag giveaway. So thanks to CD Foundation for sponsoring five swags. So you'll be getting a coupon from me later on when all the streams finishes. So make sure you fill that form in order to enter. And in the end, we'll just pick random five numbers. I mean, Andreas will pick random five numbers, and we'll just announce the winners. That's pretty simple. And what else do we have? And the housekeeping, I think yeah, the most important thing, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. I always forget to say that. It's because it never comes to my mind. Bad at marketing. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. That's what keeps me going on, and it motivates me, right? The numbers are just a fancy thing, but yeah, it motivates me when people watch live. The interaction is good, and I see all the comments, I see all the Twitter threads that people are creating. Yeah, make sure you create the Twitter threads as well. So it feels good that something has come out of the stream, like people are learning from the stream. So that really motivates the speaker and myself. Okay, we have done something good and we have learned together something new, cool today. So I think that is pretty good. And I have also pasted the link in the chat about the stream itself, so make sure you share that. And I have added that to the CICD playlist. So I see few people already in. I will put you on the screen. Welcome you all, because you have joined live. So you deserve to be on the screen. And what else? Make sure you fill the form. So today we'll be learning all about Keptn, and I have Andreas with me, who is there. And Andreas, thank you so much for giving your time and being here on the stream with us to go deep dive into Keptn. So please introduce yourself to the community. Where you work, how you have been involved with open source, with Keptn, and all the fun that you have been doing.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me. And I'm sorry that I'm sometimes looking here and then here because this is my camera, but here's the other screen where I see you. So it looks odd, but it is what it is. So I'll try to speak to the camera. I'm Andy Grabner. I've been working in the CNCF space, well, around the Kepin project for the last 3 years. We have launched Kepin 3 years ago. We have donated it to the CNCF last year. And with we, I mean the company I work for. The company is called Dynatrace, DYNA Trace. And I'm really excited. Thanks to people like you, we get a chance to talk about what we're doing, and hopefully we learn about what we should do different, because in the end we want to help people with our software to in the end deliver better software in an easier way. And this is really what we aim for Kepin. Overall, I've been in the software engineering business for, believe it or not, 22 years now. I've started in 1999, just before the 2000 crisis. I remember that when I finished my high school and they were in front of the school and they were hiring us all like crazy because everybody was like, oh, the year 2000 is coming and we need all these engineers that fix these bugs. So I've been around for a while, and I've always been in quality and performance engineering. And yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. So welcome again to the stream. I see a lot of people have joined in, and thanks to that. So I think we can kick the tires and we can get started with Keptn. What is Keptn?
Yeah, so it is a tough question to answer what Keptn really is, because I think the website that you see here, hopefully everybody can see, keptn.sh, it's a hard time to to explain in a couple of sentences what Keptn really is. And I was at KubeCon. Fortunately, I was allowed to travel to KubeCon a couple of weeks ago, and we did some, we had a lot of conversations at our booth to figure out what Keptn really is. And it depends on who you talk to. I think what I really like is the explanation that Keptn is a control plane that allows you in a declarative way to automate your day one and day two operational tasks. So Keptn is an orchestration layer. Keptn is a control plane that orchestrates, and at the center of everything are SLOs, service level objectives. So Keptn makes data-driven decisions on how to connect your individual tools, whether it's deployment tools, testing tools, notification tools, monitoring tools, configuration management tools, whatever you have. So Keptn kind of connects all of those fully automatically through an open standard, and it makes data-driven decisions as it calls one tool after the other. Now, why do we do this? Because we think we have all spent too much time in creating our bash scripts, our Python scripts, our shell scripts, our Jenkins pipelines, our whatever tool you have to do automation, and call tool A, figure out how to parse the response, call tool B. I think we spent just too much time, and Keptn really tries to chime in here and gives you an orchestration engine that does data-driven orchestration. So you can find a lot of information on keptn.sh. I can also suggest, if you are on keptn.sh, obviously follow the install Keptn instructions. Keptn itself, I think you mentioned it earlier, the prerequisites of all the stuff that you're delivering is Kubernetes. So what you need is some type of Kubernetes flavor. We have some quick start guides where you just need a Linux, Mac, or Windows machine, and then we are installing a lightweight Kubernetes, whether it's K3D, K3S, micro Kubernetes. The quick start guide is using K3D, and then it installs Keptn for you, and then you can start right away. So quick start guide is a great way to start. If you don't really know, if you really want to install anything, there's also the Explore Live demo. You can see this here on the link. So Explore Live demo will first get you to a tutorial page, which includes a video from Jürgen, one of my colleagues. I think you've done sessions with Jürgen in the past. So Jürgen has done a recording on the walkthrough, and you also get to the Keptn public demo cluster, keptn.public.demo.keptn.sh. And this is where we have or Jürgen, I want to give credit to him. He created a demo cluster with a project around Litmus. So that is Keptn orchestrating sequences for automated deployment, automated performance testing, and while the performance test runs, also executing a chaos test and then using SLOs to validate the deployment under load, under chaos. Then second project, Potato Head. This is as you can see here, multi-stage project, hardening and production, where Keptn is orchestrating sequences to deploy into hardening, testing, and then depending on the result is then promoting it to production where it then deploys. And then we also have an example with Unleash, where we are using Unleash as a feature flagging framework. So check this out. Everything is, this is really a read-only. Read-only, you can click through it, you can explore everything. What's really nice, not only can you explore the individual projects, and you can, for instance, evaluate every single execution, we call it again sequence, we call it automation sequences that Keptn is orchestrating. So you can explore everything, so you can see and feel how Keptn really feels. But what's really also nice, if you want to get started behind the scenes, it's not only to see how Keptn looks like, but if you go, right, and hopefully you can see my mouse, but on the top left, where is the Keptn logo, you always get to the overview page. And every Keptn project, whether it's Litmus, Potato Head, or Unleash here, in the backend, Keptn keeps a Git repository with all of the configuration files. And for instance, Litmus, there's a github.com, Keptn public demo, Litmus. This is where you also see the configuration files behind the scenes. And a lot of people are asking, hey, do you have examples? And a thing that you will learn later from me is Shipyard, the Shipyard file. This is the kind of the definition in Keptn on what sequences do you want Keptn to orchestrate for you. And these sequences are defined in a shipyard file. I think it's a great way in the public demo cluster to actually have a look at all of the shipyard files. So to give an example here, we have a shipyard file in the Litmus project. There is a stage called chaos, and underneath we have a delivery sequence where Keptn is orchestrating a deployment, then a test, and then the evaluation. And I will come to this in a little more detail later on, but every time you see a Keptn Git repository in the main branch, you will always find the shipyard file and any other global configuration files for the different tools that participate in the workflow. But also keep in mind that if you have one, two, three, or however many stages in a Keptn project, for every stage, you also get a branch. So for instance, there's a chaos branch in this particular project. And in the chaos branch, you find all the config files for that particular stage for every particular service. So in this project, we have a Hello service onboarded. And for the Hello service, we now have subfolders where we find the Helm charts, the Gmeter testing scripts, the Litmus chaos experiments, the Prometheus, SLIs, and also the SLOs. So I think it's just a great way to explore how Keptn is organized and what configuration files you provide to a typical project. All right, so keep this in mind. Keptn SH to start, installing the quick start, click through it, and then you get to all the resources. Uh, any
Awesome.
questions so
I
far?
think Yeah, I think that was a perfect introduction to what Keptn is, because not all that you said is mentioned on the front page. So I think it makes sense to have that particular nice introduction. Just to add on that, Jurgen is a very good friend, and he is the
Mhm,
maintainer of the Keptn app on the Sivo marketplace as well.
mhm,
So you have one click Keptn install on Sivo Kubernetes cluster as well. So you can
mhm,
get started in under a few minutes, because the cluster itself takes 2 minutes, so you can get installed over there as well with Sivo. So I think
mhm,
that's there are a couple of videos as well, I think, with respect to Keptn on Sivo. So I think that you will be definitely getting benefit of one click install over there as well, if you just want to quickly get started. But I really like, today only on Twitter I was seeing, something about the documentation, how good it is. I think Keptn has a really good sense of tutorials with respect
mhm,
to how people can navigate through different use cases, scenarios, the live demos. So I think
mhm,
these tutorials are really good, and they're in depth. So I
mhm,
think they tell you exactly, step by step how to do stuff. So that is really nice, and it
mhm.
gives a lot of conceptual flavors of what you can
Exactly.
do with Keptn, and a different set of integrations that can be done with it. I really like the way that the team has put focused on the documentation, and making sure that people coming are learning something, and they're not navigating here and there. So just everything is actually in one place. You can learn
Mhm.
a lot from Keptn.sh.
Exactly. And then maybe another place to learn is, on the docs side, right? We try to keep the docs up to date. And the latest release is release 0.10 as of today. So today is 11th of November. And there's a good overview of how Keptn works, how to install it, a lot of different guides, also explaining the different major use cases where we are used. Either it's continuous delivery, quality gates, uh, what we call automated operations. That's the whole auto remediation, how to build custom integrations, how to integrate your monitoring tools, whether it's Dynatrace or Prometheus or other tools, because we're very open. So check this out. The documentation is also, I think, a really great way to get started. And on the integrations page, I want to mention this. This is also really great. Keptn truly, as I mentioned in the beginning, what we try to solve with Keptn is the dilemma of you having to build your own orchestration, meaning trying to figure out how to call tool A, like how does the API work, calling it, getting the feedback, parsing it, and then how to call the next tool. So tool B, tool C, and tool 3. So we are trying to standardize this, and we are trying to be the hub that connects all the different tools through an open standard. We are using cloud events, another CNCF project, to communicate with these tools, and we're also part of the CDF, a special interest group that is standardizing these events now, so that hopefully in the not so distant future, all of the necessary custom integrations from tool A to tool B, all these point-to-point tool integrations should be gone, because we are driving standards to communicate and integrate tools. But this is a great way also to see what integrations are out there and already with Keptn. Exactly.
Awesome. So what
Good.
how does Keptn work? Like what are the basic building blocks
Yeah.
of Keptn?
Yeah, let me maybe use a couple of slides. What is Keptn? I've used these slides actually just this week. I was in Vienna speaking at the DevOps and security meetup, and I was also fortunate to present this at other meetups. But in a nutshell, what is Keptn and which problem does it solve? I know might be a little repetition of what I just said earlier, but I think it's always good to have a visual. So I believe, and hopefully you can agree with me, that we as site reliability engineers, as DevOps engineers, as automation engineers, we need to automate a lot of stuff as part of our what we call day one and day two operations. So getting stuff into production and keeping it there, whether it is different deployment strategies, whether it's automated testing, whether it's quality gates, adding security scans, adding SLO monitoring. There's so many things, and I'm pretty sure I missed a couple of things. And one way of solving the problem, and I always have to reference a couple of samples from our users. Christian, at the time when we worked with him, he was working at ERT as a senior DevOps engineers. Now he's actually working. He's a colleague of mine at Dynatrace, but when he worked at ERT, he basically told us that he maintained and he created a lot of scripts. In his case, their primarily automation tool was GitLab. And GitLab is a great tool and you can use it for so many things. But the thing is, if you're trying to build all these automation building blocks, you may end up with very complex scripts and pipelines. Like in his case, 1,000 lines long of pipelines code to deploy, to test, and then parse the result to provide feedback to developers, right? And if you then see that this is not happening once for one pipeline, but he was responsible for almost 1,000 pipelines, this is really tough and it's hard to scale, and it just becomes a maintenance nightmare if you have to keep up these pipelines up to date. So that's one thing, right? We all are building our own automation scripts, but basically trying to solve the same problems. Another interesting thing is from Dieter, who is one of my colleagues. He has been a colleague of mine for a while at Dynatrace. He's a senior engineer, as ACE engineer, what we call an autonomous cloud enablement engineer. And what he told us when we at Dynatrace moved from, let's say, more the monolithic type of deployment and building and deployment to more like service-oriented microservices, we obviously used tools that we were comfortable with. We knew, for instance, Jenkins. So we built our Jenkins pipelines for our individual services. Then more and more microservices were onboarded. Every service had a little flavor of which testing tools that they want to use, which deployment tool they wanted to use. And we ended up with the classical snowflake effect. We were copying and pasting, and we had multiple permutations. We also did an analysis, and we saw that we had high level of code duplication within the automation code, within the pipeline code. And again, this is just high level of technical debt and very hard to maintain. So with Keptn, this is really the problem we wanted to address. And I always say, and this is just a tagline that I kind of created, I always say, friends, don't let friends build their own orchestration, because I think we can do better, right? We should not build the next orchestration by just writing hundreds of thousand lines long scripts that call tool A, tool B, tool C. So the problem that we're really solving is, if you have automation scripts that are 1,000 lines or longer, where you have a sequence of tasks like preparing an environment, deploying by calling a particular tool, calling a particular test tool, evaluating against your monitoring tool if everything is good, and then maybe promoting that artifact through whatever means. If you have all of this in one big pipeline script or bash script or whatever it is, then I think you're doing something wrong. Or not maybe wrong, but I think it doesn't scale. It works well for one project, for two, but it doesn't work for more than that. So with Keptn, we are ripping apart these dependencies. So we are basically said, hey, we all know we have a set of tasks we need to orchestrate, whether it's for delivery or whether it's also for operations, operation automation. Think about auto remediation of a problem. In general, though, we say on the left, we have a set of tasks, and in Keptn jargon, in Keptn language, we call them automation sequences: prepare, deploy, test, evaluate, maybe promote. On the right, we have particular tools, or I'd like to call them capabilities. We have capabilities that can do a particular task: monitoring, deploying, testing, notifying. And another big thing that we see, and I think this doesn't need any justification anymore, any type of configuration, whether it's a Helm chart, a test file, an SLI definition, whatever it is, should live in Git and should not be hard coded in your pipeline. So we are moving everything in Git, and this is why behind the scenes, Kepin keeps a Git repository to manage, version, and control all of your config files for the individual tools that are active. And then we are connecting everything through events. So we have tasks on the left, we group them together in a so-called sequence. We have capabilities on the right, we have the configuration in Git, and we connect everything through eventing. And I always bring the analogy, if you used to have a monolith that was providing a business function and you broke it into multiple services, you still have something that is orchestrating that business process, and it's calling the individual microservices through events. And that's the same thing what we do here. So to give you one example, and this is kind of one of the entry level use cases that we see people use Keptn for. It's automated evaluation or automated performance testing even, right? And with the Litmus team, we have done performance testing and chaos engineering. So one of the use cases could be you have a performance sequence where you deploy, test, and evaluate. If you model these three steps, and it's really these are the three steps you need to put into what we call the shipyard file. Once you've modeled it, and if you have your tools on the right that subscribe to these events, and you have your supporting files in Git, then you can use, for instance, our Keptn CLI to say, Keptn, I want to trigger the performance sequence in the staging environment, and here is some additional metadata, like here is the image I want to deploy, or here's the metadata that the deployment tool needs because deployment is one of the tasks. So what happens is the Keptn control plane will look at the shipyard definition or the sequence definition. The first thing is deploy, so it will send an event. And this is obviously simplified here, but the event contains the information. It's a deploy task. This is the image, my app 2.0 in staging, and the strategy might be blue-green. There's additional metadata you can put into either when you call the Keptn sequence, when you trigger it through the CLI, or you can also put some metadata into the definition of tasks. Now, the nice thing is, and you can see it on the right side, I have a deployment tool that is subscribing to the event, and the deployment tool, maybe this is a Jenkins pipeline, maybe this is our Helm service, maybe this is an Argo, maybe this is Argo CD, maybe this is any other tool that subscribes to the deploy event, and you can say, yes, I can actually deploy this container in staging because I've been subscribed to it and I have all the information in Git. So then that deployment tool kicks in and says, I'm doing the job, reports back to Keptn once it starts the action and once it's done. Additionally, because it's an event-driven system, you can have multiple tools subscribe to the same event. In my case, I also have a notification tool, might be Slack, because I want to push the information to Slack every time a new deployment happens. Right? So this is the nice thing about event-driven models. Multiple people, or in this case, multiple tools can subscribe to an event. So deploy happens. Once it's done, Keptn goes on. If the deployment was successful, it goes on in the sequence and then, for instance, executes the test. And here, it could be one testing tool taking up the task, and maybe execute a performance test. In the litmus example we have on our demo environment, we have two tools. We have JMeter running a performance test, and in parallel, we also have litmus executing a chaos experiment. Right? So that's the nice thing about, again, event-driven architecture. And if this goes well, in my example here, then, and this is a very core piece of Keptn, we do an evaluation of the health of your system. So here we are evaluating the health based on SLO, service level objectives. That means this is a core component of Keptn, the SLO evaluation, where if you want to use Keptn, you can specify a list of, we call them SLIs, service level indicators, metrics. And then Keptn is reaching out to, let's say, Prometheus or Dynatrace, Datadog, New Relic, whatever tool you have that has an integration with Keptn that can subscribe to these events. And then it's pulling in the metrics, and then Keptn kind of figures out a score by looking at every single metric that is pulled back, and then says everything is good or no good. So to give you some terminology, on the left side, these sequences, we call them shipyards. It's really a sequence of tasks. We call it a sequence. A sequence has multiple tasks with some metadata, and we group them into stages. So for every project, you can have multiple sequences that are grouped by a stage. Now, what else do we have? We have a so-called uniform. The uniform are basically the individual capabilities that are subscribing to events. Then we have the config repo, right? You get the Git repository behind the scenes. For every stage, you have a branch, and this is where you put all of your files. And then we're using cloud events to communicate. I want to give you one more example because I don't want to be. I think we made one not a mistake, but I think we've been explaining and talking about Keptn a lot in the context of continuous delivery, and this is just the first example of continuous delivery here. And people always say, "So you're just another Argo, you're just another better Jenkins. So why do I need another CD tool?" And I think this is why I want to bring in the next use case. Keptn is not a CD tool. Keptn is a control plane that can orchestrate any type of automation sequence. And this is now an example for auto remediation in production. So in production, I may have different tools, right? I may have, of course, have a monitoring tool. I maybe have some infrastructure automation tool, like an Ansible, like a Chef, like a Puppet, like a Terraform. I may have a different deployment tool. I have some notification tools. I have a ticketing tool. And I can define a remediation sequence. And if, let's say, you're using Prometheus and you have set up some Prometheus alerts and something comes in, and then Prometheus can trigger Keptn and say, "Hey, Keptn, I have a problem. I detected an issue. I therefore want to trigger the remediation sequence in production." The problem might be, and this is actually from a security use case perspective, it could also be a performance use case, it could be a resource use case. This is a security use case that I presented earlier this week. Problem is a high vulnerability attack. So an attack against a high vulnerability issue. The root cause might be a bad library that you've deployed. So maybe you have Falco or any other tool that can detect the security issues and then raises an alert through Prometheus. So what happens on the Keptn side? You can specify a sequence of tasks, again, through a so-called remediation YAML file based on a root cause. So here I have my remediation YAML for the bad library version, and then Keptn orchestrates the tasks. And if you start with, hey, the first thing I want to do is block the traffic for an attack, Keptn will send out an event that says, I have a remediation task. The action is block traffic in production, and here's some additional data about the attacker. So is there a tool out there that can execute this particular action? Could be an infrastructure automation tool like Ansible making configuration changes. Additionally, I have my, let's say, Slack or MS Teams or whatever you have to notify my teams that some automation is currently happening to block the traffic. Then, very important, Keptn always goes back in and reaches out to your monitoring tool or tools, can be one or more tools, to pull in your SLOs. Is the system healthy again? did the problem go away? How are my other metrics doing? And depending on that, if everything is green, it's good. If something is bad, or if, let's say, the action did not solve the problem, Keptn would then execute the next action that you specified. Let's say a rollback, right? If the blocking the traffic didn't solve the issue, then maybe the next one that you want to do is do a rollback. And then it goes on, right? After the action, evaluating the SLO. If everything is good, great. If not, then go on. Or the last kind of resort, the last step might be an escalation where you are creating a ticket in your ticketing system and then really notify real human beings. So to sum it up, I always say you can either take the green pill or the red pill. I think that's the terminology in the matrix world. You can either build your own automation, your own orchestration, like you have done it in the past, and then stick with files that you need to maintain, and you always need to make sure that you update them based on the latest upgrades of your individual tools to make sure you can still call them correctly. Or you look at Keptn, because we make it much easier to orchestrate individual tools for whatever sequence of tasks you want to automate. And at the core of this is SLOs. So we always do an SLO evaluation to decide in which direction we orchestrate. Most importantly, we're not replacing any tools. We're not replacing your deployment tool. We're not replacing your testing tool, but we're connecting all of them together. All right, so this is kind of like what Keptn really is. Now, before I go on, any questions?
I think I would say like you have rightly mentioned the power of Keptn. It's not just another CD tool, which is very important to note here. So it's not something that is just doing a particular thing. It's much more than that, much more integrations than that. And what you can see, with the shipwright YAML file, you just define the stages,
Mhm.
actually what you want to do, and it gets done rather than your thousand lines of pipelines. And also the SLO stuff is very important because
Mhm.
whenever you deploy a new feature or something in production, it it should be quality, right? The quality should be maintained. And these days you have seen in the cloud native ecosystem, all the SREs are behind achieving the SLO objectives
Mhm.
using the SLI indicators. So I think you can define those indicators and it will be checking your monitoring systems, which
Exactly.
is also again pluggable. You can have Prometheus, you can have other systems like Datadog, Dynatrace, and then you can get those set of metrics, evaluate it against the score that you have defined or set, and if it
Mhm.
meets, then only it goes to production. And then that actually should happen. So it should meet
Exactly.
your expectation, it should meet your the agreements that you have done with the management. Okay, this is the objective that I will achieve anytime I am submitting any new feature in the production.
Mhm.
And when the project grows, it becomes very critical. So the SLOs are something on which your project is actually measured a lot. So I
Exactly.
think that's a very big feature of Keptn, I would say. And
Mhm.
then you have all the integrations that Andreas was showing. Like it's really simple. You just have your tools to do the stuff,
Mhm.
and you don't have to rewrite from scratch all the automations that you have already built upon.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah.
So there are a
S-
couple of questions.
Yeah.
One is like, you talked about the security one, right? So
Mhm.
Sangam is asking like, what resources it scans.
So remember, Keptn itself orchestrates. Keptn itself doesn't scan. Keptn itself triggers the tools to do a particular job at a particular point in time. So that means, if let me go back to my example here. Let me go to my live environment. Right. If I go to my I have a different Keptn environment here that I typically use, and this is part of one of my tutorials that I have. Let me go to my rollout example. That's Argo rollouts, right? Another CNCF project. So if you look at this here, I have a demo rollout project, and if I look at my delivery sequence, then my delivery sequence has several actions. Monaco, in my case, configures my monitoring. Could be Prometheus, could be Datadog, could be Dynatrace. In my case, it's Dynatrace. Then I deploy, I use Helm. Then I validate if my deployment actually was successful. In this case, I'm using our generic executor that is then executing a bash script. It's the validate.trigger.sh, so I can also have Keptn just execute any bash scripts. In this case, it's just validating that my deployment was successful and the newly deployed version is really kind of responding with the right content. Then I have release, where I'm actually triggering Argo rollouts to make sure that I'm releasing the new deployment in a blue-green fashion, right? You can see here the Argo service is kicked in. And then I have a test phase. Now, to the question that was just coming in, what can it do? What does it scan? Keptn doesn't scan anything. Keptn is triggering tools. So if you have a scanning tool, whatever tool it is, you can hook it up with one of these tasks. The point is, in your organization, I assume you have a certain process in mind, how you release software. And you write it down in Keptn in a so-called shipyard file. And then you decide at which stage you want to engage which tool. The good thing about this, you don't need to write any integration code anymore. So let me show you how this definition here looks like in Keptn. Now I go back to my top left here, my overview. My demo rollout example is here. This is now my Git repository. The shipyard file for the sequence I just showed you is this. Let me zoom in. So I want to make sure everybody sees this. In staging, I have a delivery sequence. I have Monaco, deployment, validate, release, test, evaluation, and approval. If you watch closely, there's no tool here. I don't say what testing tools should be used, what should happen behind release or validate. This is because we separated the concerns between process and tooling. So when I install Keptn, I can have one or multiple tools subscribe to the event that Keptn will send out when it orchestrates my process. So let me jump back to the Keptn bridge. This is what we call the bridge. Demo rollout. Let me go to the same example again that I was earlier, the delivery sequence. So for instance, if you deploy and then in test, you want to do a security scan, or maybe you want to do it during deployment. I don't care where you would do it. But whatever task Keptn orchestrates, Keptn always sends a cloud event. And this is now the payload that Keptn sends out. So for the testing, it sends out SH. I'm not sure if you are familiar with cloud events, but cloud event is another CNCF project. It kind of standardizes some of the content of the JSON payload, and we are adding some additional metadata for particular tasks. And we're currently working with CDF, the Continuous Delivery Foundation, to also standardize the main data content for particular tasks like deployment or testing or evaluation or promotion. But in this case, Keptn sends out an event of the type test triggered with additional metadata. It's this service, it's this stage, it's this particular project. The deployment already happened, and here's the URI where the previous task deployed to. Here is the image that was deployed. So now you can, if you want to add an additional tool to the mix that reacts to the test event, like I have JMeter here, you can create your own tool, or let's say that way, you can subscribe your tool to simply react to this particular event. And with subscribing, you mean we have different ways how you can interact. You can either pull or subscribe to an event, and we then call your tool. We have, if you want to build your own Keptn template, oops, here we go, Keptn template. We provide, not Keptn, sorry, Keptn sandbox, and then there is the Keptn service template. Go, here we go. All right, you can use our template for the Go language to write your own tool integration, where we have basically taken care of the subscribing to an event and then just calling your code. That will be one option. And let me actually send this link here I think you said I can send it into the chat. Is that the way to do it? Share some links or comments? What's the best way for me?
You can send me in the private chat.
Yeah,
I'll put
perfect.
in the
Yeah.
comment.
So this is one option to trigger tool. Another one that I think is really awesome is the so-called job executor. I think it's actually a contrib project already. Trace service. So we have all the stuff here. And let's just see job. Here we go. The job executor service is a really cool service that allows you to basically specify just a container, and then Keptn takes, or the job executor itself takes care of deploying that container as a Kubernetes job and executing it. So let me send this over as well, and hopefully you can forward that. There's some great stuff in it. Also, we have support for GitHub Actions. So if you already have GitHub Actions, we can even reuse GitHub Actions. But essentially, you specify if, for instance, Keptn triggers a test triggered event, you then want to run this particular container, download these particular files from the Keptn configuration repository for that particular stage, and then in that container, run this particular command with this particular arguments and with this particular environment. So this is also an easier way to trigger an external tool. I also want to show you something else. Let me just quickly, and let me maybe make this a little bit bigger here. Let's just make this change settings and appearance, because I think this might be a little too small.
Yep.
Apply. Yep, I think that might be a little bigger. So on this case, I am running my Keptn on a K3S. And
Yeah, can you make it more big? It's still
still too
small.
small. Okay.
Yeah.
Appearance, let's do 20. Font size 20. Is this
Yep.
better?
Looks good. Yep.
Perfect. Right. So in my case, I have my Keptn installation. So when you install Keptn, Keptn has the notion of the core of Keptn is what we call the control plane. The control plane constitutes the core Keptn components. It's the nuts cluster that we use for eventing. It's the bridge, that's the UI. It's the secret service, because Keptn manages secrets, approval service, remediation. So a couple of things. But then I have, for instance, the JMeter service, my Helm service, the Argo service, the Dynatrace service, the generic executor. These are services that are containers that subscribe to Keptn events. Now they, in my case, well, they live on the same Kubernetes cluster, but you can also install them on different target platforms, on different Kubernetes clusters as an execution plane. And this is what allows Keptn to also orchestrate tasks across multiple environments. So you install the Keptn control plane, but your individual execution tools, or what I call capabilities, can live anywhere, and you can install them anywhere. You install them, and then they subscribe to the events of in the central control plane, and basically say, Keptn, whenever you have a test triggered event for this particular type of project, or for any project in a particular environment, then please let me know, and then I'll do the task. But this is how it looks on my machine. And then if I go back to my Keptn installation here with my rollout example, right? Remember, I had here my staging and my delivery sequence. So everything went through, Monaco, deployment, validate, and so on. I also had an approval stage at the very end. Approval means that this is a built-in option. Every time Keptn does an evaluate, and in this case, it evaluated my deployment with a score of 100, and this is something core to Keptn. What it really did, it was reaching out to my monitoring tool. It could be Prometheus, could be Dynatrace, anything. In my case, it's Dynatrace. It was reaching out, and it was then pulling back the individual criteria, error rate, response time, and so on. How to get query error rate and against which criteria to compare it to is something you can again put into the configuration repo in the YAML file. We have an SLI YAML and SLO YAML where you can specify, let's say, PromQL, and then the objective, or in my world, I work a lot with Dynatrace. It could be a Dynatrace query. Important thing is that Keptn, when you put the evaluation tasks in, it will reach out to that monitoring tool and it then pulls in the data. And then I have at the end of the stage, I have an approval where I say, I want the human to then make a decision whether to approve it to the next stage. And I can say, sure, I want to approve it 100%. That looks pretty good. So I click on approve. And now the sequence continues. And the sequence continues in my case means, let me go first back to my shipyard file. Remember, this is my shipyard file. I had my delivery and staging. That's what I just showed you. Monaco, deployment, validate, release, test, evaluate, and then approval. If I scroll further down, I have another stage called prod, production. And here I have another delivery sequence that I am triggering in case my staging delivery finishes with the result pass. So now what Keptn really does, if one sequence finishes, I can automatically trigger the next sequence based on the result. And now what should happen is should the deployment, they validate, a test, and evaluate, and then an approval. So if I go back, hopefully, here we go, staging, and now it's already in production. You can see here the delivery sequence starts, deployment just happened, validate, and test. And it just goes on, right? And then all the tools that are subscribed will then act upon. Now, what's new, and that was introduced in Keptn 0.10, which was released last week. If you see on the left here, I have a uniform menu entry. This is where you also see all the individual capabilities, so we call them Keptn services, that are currently subscribed to events. This is where you see the Lighthouse service that takes care of SLO evaluation, the approval service, the Helm service, and so on. We also have a new service, it's called the webhook service. And the webhook service is really cool because it allows you to subscribe to events, right? You can actually create a subscription. You can click on add subscribe, and then you can say, hey, you know what? I would like to subscribe to, let's say, I don't know, test finished or test triggered or test started, and then I want to call a certain webhook. Now, let me not fill this out now. Let me just show you an existing one because I have two subscriptions already for evaluation finished and deployment finished. And if I click on edit, what I'm doing here, I have specified an evaluation finished webhook where I'm posting an event, in my case to Slack. So I'm just have a Slack channel, and I'm just saying I want to call a certain webhook on Slack. And then you can specify the payload. And the nice thing is you have placeholders available that allow you to then fill in the data from the actual event. You also see an example payload here. So because I selected evaluation finished, if I click on show example payload, then this will be one of the examples. So any data element here, you can access it through through the placeholders here, right? This is just Go indexing or Go placeholders, Go templating. So that means if I go back to my sequence that is currently running, I have deployment and I have evaluation and I have my Slack channel here. And you can see here, this is my Slack channel for the demo rollout simple node. It's currently Keptn deployment finished pass for this project, for this stage, for this service with a link to the URL. This is my application that is actually deployed. And I also have a link to the details. This is a link back to my Keptn's bridge, my UI, exactly for this particular task. So I think this is really cool. So with this, you can integrate this. And I'm sorry that it's a little slow here. I'm running everything. I run Keptn and the environment it deploys to on a rather undersized EC2 instance, but keeping fingers crossed, it should come up any second. I promise it should come up to the same screen like this one here. Exactly. Right. So, and here we go. That's it. Here we are. So, multiple options to integrate and extend. And at the core, you always have your SLIs and SLOs. And remember, behind every project, if I go to the Keptn, the demo rollout, behind every project is a Git repository where in the main branch, you have your shipyard and you have your global config files for your individual tools. So you can even specify, like in my case, global JMeter files, global webhooks, global scripts for the generic executor, global files for the Dynatrace configuration. Or I go into, let's say, prod for production. Here I have files that should be used or can be used for that particular stage. And I also have folders for my individual services that I onboard, because remember, just let me go once back. Keptn is organized in projects like demo rollout. Every project has automation sequences that are grouped by stages. And then in every project, you can onboard one or multiple services, like kind of like see it as your microservices, see it as your deployment unit, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a microservice. It can also be like a unit that you want to kind of automate, right? That you want to push through the automation. So that means in my case, in prod, I have a subfolder called simple node. And in here, I have my Helm charts for that particular service for production. Or I have my, let's say in the Dynatrace folder, I have my SLI. This is my definition, my query language against Dynatrace. It could be Prometheus query language, PromQL, if you use Prometheus, but this is the way I query my metrics from Dynatrace. And then I have my SLO YAML. This is where I can specify what Keptn should do with the metrics against which criteria to compare it to. And then what overall score I'm expecting for Keptn to consider this a good or a bad build. Right? So this is it. There's a lot of, I mean, I know a lot of more stuff we could show, but considering the time, about 8 minutes left, I want to see if there's any other comments or any other questions.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I think you have showed a lot of stuff with respect to this, especially the webhook part. And I mean, there's a comment that the observability part is really interesting to analyze.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think there are a lot of pieces over here to to have a hold on, to have a look at. The shipyard.yaml file is something which is pretty neat, and you can have different stages.
Mm-hmm.
You can trigger them on the basis of the result of the previous stage. And you can also have webhooks that you showed that you can integrate very easily, and you can send custom payloads, and you can provide, I mean, the integration looks kind of simple as well over there. So I think that's pretty neat
Mm-hmm.
with respect to what Keptn has, and all the repositories that you shown, especially the Keptn sandbox,
Mm-hmm.
and the Keptn contrib job executor service.
Mm-hmm.
Those are also great. And there is another comment, which is, I like that SLO is the first class citizen from
Mm-hmm.
the start, not retrofitted into the tool. Because
Exactly.
again and again I say, like, the SLO is big part of the Kepen project. And I mean, it is really good. It really makes sense to
Mm-hmm.
have thought about that from the beginning. So that's plus. And another comment says it is kind of GitOps plus plus. So that's also nice. So yeah, I think that's pretty neat, and I think that will give the audience not something, actually many things to try out
Mm-hmm.
Keptn. So you have the quick starts, you have your demo environments, you have
Mm-hmm.
your live environment which is there. You
Mm-hmm.
can use on your laptops with K3D. You can have CO Kubernetes cluster, one click install. So there are
Mm-hmm.
multiple ways you can do. There's a tutorial, there's a demo that Andrea showed just now, that you can try out. So I think many things. Try out the webhook, Slack notifications on every deployment, auto remediation based on the monitoring. tons of stuff that you can do with Keptn,
Mhm.
and that leads to tons of use cases that you can create with Keptn. So I think that's
Exactly.
pretty neat. Yep, I think that's pretty interesting. Andreas, anything else you want to share with respect to the community, or or something?
I want to share one more thing, and I want to say thank you to Jürgen, who did a lot of great work over the last couple of years in promoting us in the CNCF and the open source community. I know you work closely with you. Jürgen is currently taking, he's moving on to a different role within Dynatrace, because we're all employed at Dynatrace, and we are very happy that he's obviously taking his expertise to another team. But we're also happy that we have Oleg Nanishev, who I think you have on the call tomorrow on Jenkins. He's a big,
Yep.
I think he's Mr. Jenkins, probably one of the Mr. Jenkinses. He's now coming to Keptn, and he's just started in my team at Dynatrace and is now promoting Keptn as well. So I'm really happy that we have a lot of power now behind Keptn, and therefore I think the future is bright, but it's only bright if we get more people to really use it, give us feedback, and contribute. So please do me a favor, check out Keptn, check us out on GitHub, right? So make sure that you check out Keptn itself, star us, like us, follow us, and contribute.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Oleg, Oleg told me sometime back, he's joining in. I was waiting for the announcement,
Mhm,
and then I also know, like, happen to know Jurgen and now yourself. So I think
mhm,
all the pretty good team I know. So I think everybody you who wants to get started with contributions. You are seeing the right project on the screen. Especially, I see there are a few beginners in the live stream right now. So I think that's a great place, welcoming
mhm,
people like you are seeing on the screen, and even Oleg, who's there tomorrow with us. So I think a lot of great people are there. So I think definitely go out and start small, and then be a big contributor
mhm.
to Keptn.
Exactly.
So with that, like, it's the giveaway time. So I hope everybody has filled the form, and there are 17 kind of entries. So can you, Andreas, give me five numbers between 1 and 17?
3, 11, 13.
Three, okay, 11, 13. Two more.
3, 11, 13, and then 6.
Six. Okay, and the last one.
10.
Awesome. 10. Okay, so I have copied the name, so I'm posting them in the chat. Pallav Goswami, Sangam, Khaja, Vijay Krishna, and Vishal Arora. Congratulations on winning the coupons. Obviously I'll email them to you. I hope your emails are correct that you have provided, because that's the only way that I can contact you. So I'll be giving them after all the streams. All the streams are over. Again, thank you all for joining. We had 20 folks as well at some point seeing a slide, so which is good. I'm really happy that people want to learn about Keptn. That shows the interest in the project, so that's pretty cool. Make sure you check the project out,
Mhm.
follow them, and amazing people are there. Keep contributing. And obviously, I hope you enjoyed the fourth day of CI/CD week, which was Keptn by Andreas. So he's there from Dynatrace doing Keptn stuff. Make sure you reach out to him if you have any suggestions. You're working on something, use cases, or any contributions.
Mhm.
And thank you all for joining in. Really, really appreciate you giving your time and learning something new from this. That really makes me feel that we are doing something right, and you people are learning something, and I myself I'm learning something new every day. And tomorrow, same time, 8 a.m. PT, we'll be having Oleg. I know you all know Oleg, and I have been cooking this whole series with Oleg, so everybody is excited for that. And Jenkins is something, he is like kind of guru of Jenkins. So he'll be there tomorrow. We'll be learning Jenkins. So make sure you tune in tomorrow 8 a.m. PT. And again, thank you so much, Andreas, for your time, and spending with us, and giving us all your knowledge about Keptn.
Definitely. Thank you for having me. All the best.
Okay, bye everyone. Have a nice
Bye.
day.